A question has arisen whether Jesus Christ was linked to Sanatan Dharma. The answer has to be basically yes, because Christianity was not invented, but it was lying on the foundations of Jewish culture. Whether Jewish culture had the roots in Sanatan Dharma is the actual question. To understand Jesus, we have to take it very scientifically, because Christianity is one of the biggest religions of the world. And as an enthusiast, everybody would like to have its claim over the legend of Jesus. Let us understand Jesus in some detail. To understand Jesus, we have to understand Paul. Paul was born in the same era, in the same time frame as Jesus. And it was Paul who had spread Christianity the way it looks like. While doing that, Paul was selective. He selectively chose the sayings of Mark, Matthew, John, and Luke, whereas he ignored the sayings of Thomas, Peter, Judas, and Mary. Not just he ignored these people, but also called them Gnostics. This Gnostic is a word very similar to Nastik of Sanatan Dharma. Paul was a Roman citizen, but he was associated with a sect called Pharisees. And this sect of Pharisees was at constant conflict with Sadducees. Now understand these words. The word Pharisee is quite similar to Rishi, and the word Sadducees is quite similar to Sadhu in Sanatan Dharma. It becomes slightly difficult to connect Judaism or Jewism to the ancient Sanatan Dharma. This is because we lost a lot of historical links of Indus Valley civilization. We lost the links and the proofs wherein the Mesopotamian religions, the Jewism, and the religions in Sanatan Dharma were interconnected. Whatever proofs we have about Indus Valley civilization, we can see that they worshipped a goddess who was super powerful. And Shiva, there is a seal that was found and is presumed to be Pasupatinath. Question hence arises whether the development in Indus Valley civilization was in parallel to Judaism. Let us look at history of Judaism. Judaism was full of deities. There were gods like El, Asherah, Baal, and the supreme god was Yahweh. Not just the Jews began praying a single god, they stopped describing about Yahweh. They said Yahweh is beyond description. And I have told you in my previous discourses that a similar situation arose in Sanatan Dharma at the arrival of Atharvaved, wherein the focus was shifted from praying multiple deities and putting the faith in one God who is undescribable, a God that is beyond perceptions, a God that is beyond imaginations, and the people of Sanatan Dharma called it Shiva. So in this sense, the Judaism also had the same transformation wherein they were praying multiple deities, but with time they shifted their focus to one unimaginable God. The second most important aspect of Judaism or Jewism is the prayer towards Apis bull. They stopped praying deities but kept praying a bull with the imaginative figure of Yahweh. It is quite similar to praying a Nandi, and instead of Shiva, a Shivling was established which was formless. In my previous discourses, I have spoken about Jainism and have connected Nandi with their first Tirthankar called Rishabh, Rishabh means a bull. In this sense, Judaism, Jainism, and Shivaism had the very common fundamentals: the praying of a bull, a formless god, and creation from deities. The very foundation of Shivaism is sadhana, and in sadhana, all the Shivaites believe that they could amalgamate with that one supreme, formless God. Judaism had their first prophet called Abraham. Abraham is a word inspired from Aham Braham, which necessarily means that through sadhana one can amalgamate with the supreme power, the supreme God. Not just this, the sect following Judaism is called Jiv, and Jiv is a word coming from Jainism, which means the living entities. You have to understand that it is not very easy to keep faith in a formless God. Devotion towards something imaginable, the idols, the deities, is a common trait, and this common trait has always attracted people. God said to Abraham that the people have been misguided. They have been trapped in the village called Sodom or Gomorrah. This Sodom is quite similar to sodomy, and Gomorrah is quite similar to getting misguided. So be reminded that these cities were situated near a lake called Lake Shiva. Hence, praying a formless God and people getting misguided was a common trait, and it was God who said Abraham to burn these cities. Vast disconnect between people praying towards idols and people keeping faith in a formless God can be seen in the era of Moses. God informed Moses that people of Jacob or Israel have been enslaved by Pharaoh in Egypt, and he was instructed to get them free and take them to a promised land. However, many people betrayed Moses and began praying the golden bull. So this is a constant conflict between people who would stumble to pray idols and people who will keep their faith in a formless God. From the perspective of Sanatana Dharma, we know that Jainism and Buddhism are the offshoots of Sanatana Dharma, but they emphasize upon praying an unimaginable God without any idol. From the perspective of Torah or Judaism, the same story is captured, wherein God said that people of Jacob, that is Israel, would be great, but at the same time there would be another great nation, and this nation would be found by Ishmael, the son of Hagar. And this Ishmael is someone to look deeper into. It is said that once Hagar and Ishmael were left in the wilderness just near Mecca, and both of them got very thirsty. Hagar moved from one peak to another peak, Safa and Marwa, and accidentally she found a well of water. This is a parabolic representation of Buddhism's middle path. So the nation of Ishmael is nothing but a parabolic symbolism of suggesting Buddhism, wherein traveling between two peaks, the two poles, and following a middle path would get you ecstasy, would get you the bliss, would get you the enlightenment without much effort. And this is what Buddha said. Buddha asked to remain steadfast on the middle path, and enlightenment happened when there was no effort and no expectation. This story of Buddha and Ismail are the same. So the conflict in the Arabian Peninsula was amongst three different sects. One was idol worshippers, which were like Egyptians and Mesopotamians, and Judaism started breaking down into two different sects. One was quite similar to Jainism, wherein epistle was prayed, and one was Buddhism. Torah identifies these two sects as people of Jacob and people of Ismail. Yet another difference between Jacob and Ismail. Jacob had dreamed of a ladder to reach heaven. This necessarily means that people of Jacob or Israel believed in step-by-step process to reach the destiny. Whereas for Ismail, it was a passionate and desperate run between Safa and Marwa. And he and his mother accidentally discovers the bliss. This is the basic difference between Jainism and Buddhism. In Jainism, there is a scientific approach, whereas in Buddhism, Gautama said that his very denial of effort led him to enlightenment. Let us now also see Judaism getting into two different sects. There was a prophet named Moses, and God has ordered him to bring forth his people and take them to the promised land. This concept is quite similar to Sukhavati concept of Buddhism, the Dwarika concept of Krishnaism. However, Moses did not succeed. Most of his people went back to praying a golden calf. Moses was angry. He destroyed the tablets before sharing it. The content of the original tablets were never shared. Rather, a person whose face was never seen wrote few tablets for the commoners. This concept is similar to the foundation of Buddhism, wherein different teachings are given to different type of people. A type of people is called Sravaka, who are moderate, mediocres, and common households. Buddhism suggests that the preaching for Sravaka has to be different than those of Pratyek Buddha and Samasambhuddha. Hence, the documented wisdom given by Moses were for Sravakas. And hence, one group in Judaism came back saying that they were the people of Abraham. And hence, there was a conflict between original Abraham following people and the commoners who followed the preaching of Moses. Moses was extremely popular, and his teachings can be related to Krishna's teaching. The duo of Moses and Aaron are quite similar to the duo of Krishna and Arjun. However, the mediocre audience limits the teachings, and these teachings are popular but are not deep in nature. People of Abraham said that they needed deeper teaching, whereas people of Moses were large in number and were mediocre in nature. This can be seen by a popular myth in Sanatana Dharma. It says that there was a demon called Mushak, and that demon was very powerful. However, Ganesha could control that demon and make him as his consort, as his mount, as a mouse. This mouse, the Musak, and the conflict between Ganesha shows that there was a group of higher intellect which denied or did not conform to the totality that the teachings of Moses were deep enough. So, before the rise of Jesus, the spiritualism, the religiousness in the Arabian Peninsula was at the peak. There was different sort of philosophies going on. And as I told you, that Buddhism is nothing but Krishnaism. The only battle was whether to keep Sambh as a deity or deny his presence. Sambh means the possibility. If a religion has the possibility to amalgamate, it is Buddhism. And if the religion misses that particular possibility, it is nothing but deity worshipping. Now, let us come nearer to the birth of Jesus. Let us go to somewhere 400 BC to 200 BC, or maybe till the birth of Jesus. This entire area was under influence of Indo-Greek kings. There was a king named Manendra who ruled the entire Indo-Greek peninsula and was a Buddhist. Hence, Buddhist teachings were prevalent before the rise of Jesus. A very unique development had happened. Shivaism means Tantra, and Tantra means a scientific approach to enhance one's spirituality to the extent that one becomes amalgamated with God. As Mahabharata was popular during those days, and everybody knew the real meaning of Mahabharata, wherein each character of Mahabharata was symbolic representation of some or the other psyche, emotion, biological aspect, or instinct. The 18 days battle had many views. These views or the formation of battle were nothing but the internal formation of battle between various psyches. These battles were the key to enhance one's spiritualism to the higher level. These viewers were basically painted and visualized. And when you keep all these instincts on a picture and begin visualizing on the same, begin working on those same aspects, on the same feelings, then it is called Tantra. The wisdom of Krishna was replicated as Hera in Greece. Hera was goddess of wisdom, very similar to Krishna in Sanatana Dharma. But Hera had a feminish touch. The feminine touch of Hera had to be replaced, and it was replaced by a hero called Hercules or Heracles. He was masculine, he was powerful. And Buddhism, when spread in these areas where Greek myths were merging with Buddhism, gave it a new name, and the name was Vajrapani. Vajrapani had a thunderbolt, something similar to Indra. And in the battle of Mahabharata, you will see that controlling the Indriyas or the senses is the most important aspect of the battle. It is the most important aspect of Tantra. Hence, Vajrapani was given immense importance in Tantra. The entire sect called Vajrayana developed based on Tantra, based on Vajrapani. And it had the foundation of Shivaism, wherein the mother goddess, the Shakti, is prayed and a practitioner practices different tantras to elevate himself or herself. The concept of Vajrapani is very, very important, and it needs to be understood in order to understand Jesus. Vajrapani comes in a trinity. There is Amitabh Buddha, there is Manjushri, and there is Avalokiteshvara. Amitabh Buddha is light, denoted as the Father God, the biggest, the unexplainable, similar to Shiva. Manjushri is wisdom, similar to Krishna, Hera, or Sophia. This word Sophia would be the name to come in the coming time after Jesus. But Sophia, Manjushri, Hera, Krishna, everybody denoted the same thing, that was wisdom. So there is a supreme God called Amitabh Buddha, there is wisdom, and there is a third component called Avalokiteshvara. To understand Jesus, you have to understand Avalokiteshvara also. Avalokiteshvara was a Buddha who had a dream of helping everyone. It was his passion to give his devotees freedom from sufferings, and he started hearing everybody's cries. His one head was not enough. Amitabh Buddha gave him 10 heads and gave him 20 hands. Avalokiteshvara kept hearing the sufferings and the prayers and the cries of the people and kept eliminating them. This concept became so very powerful that Avalokiteshvara became more popular than Amitabh Buddha also. However, the learned Buddhists always said that Avalokiteshvara is just a concept and cannot be Amitabh Buddha. However, Avalokiteshvara and the passion connected with Avalokiteshvara became the foundation of Jesus. Before we come to Jesus and his birth, let us have a look at another prophet who appeared just few years before Jesus. His name was John the Baptist. And what did John teach? John taught to remain non-violent. John taught the very basic teachings of Jainism, and the word Jain and John are quite similar as well. This necessarily means that before the rise of Jesus, there was an attempt to revive Jainism through the legend of John. This means that Jesus was a reaction from the Buddhist thinkers. The event of Jesus was very, very brief. If you look at the story, you will find it's just a month in the span. Jesus appears to Peter, and Peter was a fisherman. The Romans had levied a lot of taxes on fishing, which was considered unjust. Jesus persuaded Peter not to pay taxes, quite similar to Krishna lifting Govardhan Parvat. Now, Govardhan means government, and Dhan means tax. So the tax paid to the government was the symbolic representation done by Govardhan Parvat. Jesus did the same. He told Peter not to pay taxes. They moved forward towards Jerusalem along with some disciples, and Jesus rode a donkey. And in Sanatan Dharma, you will see that on the foothills of Govardhan Parvat was a demon called Dhenuka. Dhenuka was also a donkey. Jesus cleansed the temple from all these tax collectors and money changers. And these were the virtues of Krishna himself. Not later. Jesus was tried, crucified. Some believe that he died on the cross. Some do believe that he resurrected. But the entire story and the time span associated with Jesus was very, very brief. Just a month. So how did this story become too popular? And this story became too popular because of the person called Paul. Paul wanted to resurrect an operation against the Romans. And he used Jesus as a tool towards disobedience, a tool towards denial to pay taxes, a tool to make people understand that their sins were already taken away by a Messiah. As I told you earlier, Paul did ignore many teachings linked to Matthew and Mary and Judas and people like them. He labeled them Gnostic, which means Nastik in Sanatan Dharma. Hence, if we look at Jesus in detail, look at the events as in the merchants from East had come to anoint him, you will see a very big similarity between Buddhism and the legend of Jesus. In Buddhism, there is a trend to anoint somebody as the future leader in the very early age. And this was something which was done to Jesus. We should not mistake this era of Jesus as an era of moderate wisdom. This particular geography, as well as the era, was highly religious and highly educated. As I explained you in my discourse of Ashoka, Alexander was on religious war, spreading the philosophies of Aristotle. This is quite similar to Jainism. But as Alexander died, his close confidant became regent of Alexandria, the capital of Egypt. His name was Ptolemy. Ptolemy and his generations ruled up to 30 BC, till the time Mark Antony died and Octavian ruled the capital of Rome. With the death of Mark Antony and Cleopatra, Egypt fell in the hands of Octavian. And this did not happen swiftly, but there was a long civil war between Ptolemies and the Romans. The streets of Alexandria were full of naked sages as per the historical recordings. They also had well-robed sages. And these are something like the ones you see in Sanatan Dharma, the Naga sadhus, the nude sages of Jainism, as well as the well-dressed Buddhists. Octavian could not handle the religious complexity easily. There was an attempt in Judaism to amalgamate all deities and begin to worship Yahweh, and Yahweh in turn becomes undescribable. So this was a scientific approach in Judaism. But what Octavian did was quite unscientific. He tried to amalgamate the Egyptian deities like Osiris, similar to Vishnu, like Ptah, similar to Brahma, Amun, similar to Om, and Apis, similar to Nandi. And Octavian tried to create a new god named Serapis. This could have been possible earlier, but not in the age of Tantra, wherein each deity means something unique. Hence, the very failure of Octavian to create a formless god amongst the deities of the Egyptian myths was a failure and a disaster. People had huge dissatisfaction. They did not like the concept of Serapis, and people who denied them were called Gentiles. Paul actually proliferated the legend of Jesus amongst these Gentiles because the story of Jesus was based on Buddhism. The story of Jesus was based on Vajrayana, and hence it was very easy for Paul to spread Christianity as he had audience which was already in discontent. A long time was taken in order to make Jesus as an acceptable concept to these Gentiles. The concept of Mary and infant Jesus was added to make the concept quite similar to Isis and Horus or Yashoda and Krishna. The secret ministry of Isis was headed by Jesus. This ministry had a lot of mysteries. It was quite similar to Tantra. And based on this, Jesus was also called Ishu. The one who is proliferating the concept of Isis is called Ishu. The very word Christianity also evolves from Krishnanity. And if you look at the concept of Jesus in a holistic manner wherein you do not deny the Gnostic Gospels, you will find that the legend of Jesus is nothing but resurrection of Buddhism and Tantra. As time elapsed, a Bible was written in 4th century after 400 years of the legend of Jesus. And as it happens with every religion, Christianity also was biased by the perception of certain people, maybe Constantine or the popes of that era. But the refusal of Gnostic Gospels is a big handicap in order to understand Jesus. And once we take these teachings as a holistic learning from Jesus, we will see that Jesus is nothing but a Buddha. Jesus is nothing but the resurrection of Krishna. Enough for today.